Hi, you're on the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. We've just been through a presidential election. Do you know what we got? Do you know what this thing has wrought? At a publication called The Week, Democrat Damon Linker wrote a scathing analysis entitled "The Left Just Got Crushed." He's talking about the election. The election where, it seems, the Democrats outvoted the Republicans. So, how, you ask? Well, Biden is on track to be a weak, ineffectual president governing at the mercy of Mitch McConnell's Machiavellian machinations. His words, not mine. And so much for the Democrat fantasy, the one that seemingly never dies, the one of unobstructed rule. Democrats didn't just want to win and govern in the name of a deeply divided nation's fractured sense of the common good. No, they wanted to lead a moral revolution, to transform the country, not only enacting a long list of new policies, but making a series of institutional changes that would entrench their power far into the future. They wanted to pack the Supreme Court, add left-leaning states, break up others to give the left huge margins in the Senate, get rid of the Electoral College, abolish the police, rewrite the nation's history with white supremacy and racism placed at the very center, ensure equity, not just in opportunity, but in outcome. They'd even establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to teach everyone who voted for or supported the 45th president just how evil they really are. These policy suggestions are not merely off-the-wall rantings. These people were serious. Now keep in mind, this guy's writing earlier in the week when it looked like Trump was winning. It may be that he didn't win, but none of this changes. They came from prominent Democrats, progressive politicians, activists, scholars, prize-winning journalists, leading cultural institutions, all of them talking this way. Joe Biden himself usually did the smart thing and tried to distance himself from the most radical proposals, but in the end, it wasn't enough to mollify fears of an ascendant left hell bent on entrenching itself in power and enacting institutional reforms that would enable it to lead a moral, political, and cultural revolution. And all of that is the issue. Democrats live in a country with a large, passionate opposition. Arrogant talk of demographic inevitabilities and transformative changes to lock Republicans out of power in the name of democracy all have the effect of inspiring that opposition to unite against them, rendering political success less assured and more tenuous. The reality here is that there will be no court packing, there'll be no added states, nothing from the toxic progressive fantasy wish list is going to come anywhere close to passing. Instead, we will have grinding, obstructive gridlock. His prophecy. Some will demand that Biden push through progressive priorities by executive order, but every time he does, like every incident of urban rioting and looting, every effort to placate the left-wing squad in the House, every micro-targeted identity politics box-checking display of intersectional moral preening and finger-wagging, the country will be moved closer and closer to witnessing a conservative backlash that results in Republicans taking control of the House and increasing their margin in the Senate in November 2022. Rendering the Biden administration even more fully dead in the water. In short, Linker says it's time for the Democrats to realize that half of America cannot simply be crushed, and that this election, with its blue wave that never came, is a stunning repudiation of the revolution Democrats desperately wanted to unleash. There's a growing consensus, he says, in the media that Democrat plans for America have been foiled. As Bloomberg put it, quote, many of the fondest hopes of Biden's party and darkest fears of his opponents will be unrealized, end of quote. Having failed to retake the Senate, lost ground in the House, every inch of liberal legislative gains will be an uphill struggle. Court packing is dead. If the 6-3 Republican advantage on the Supreme Court changes, it will have to be the old-fashioned way. That means people are going to have to die. Dick Morris weighed in on all of this. He gave us a list. He says only the Electoral College or the various state legislators can declare a candidate the winner. To base this decision on network vote totals and projections and to call Biden the president-elect is therefore just irresponsible. The recounts, he says, in Arizona, Georgia, and the other states are likely to go heavily for Trump. Most of the likely errors or invalid votes took place on mailed-in ballots. Machine votes are harder to tamper with. Since Biden won upwards of 2/3 of the mail-in votes and absentee ballots, it's likely that most of the discarded mail ballots will be subtracted from his total. Thirdly, he says the networks currently give Trump 214 electoral voters. 270 is the victory level. Alaska, where Trump has led by 2-1 all week and is now more than half counted, will likely throw its 3 votes to Trump, giving him 217. Trump has likewise led in North Carolina, 15 votes there, all week, and his margin of 75,000 has not diminished. He will undoubtedly carry North Carolina, like Alaska, and the media will not call it for Trump to promote the illusion of a Biden victory. North Carolina would bring Trump's vote to 232. The vote count in Arizona shows Trump's deficit shrinking from 30,000 on Friday to 18,500 on Saturday, with about 100,000 left to count. After Arizona's 11 votes is fully counted, it will go through a recount subject to the pro-Trump bias identified in point number 2. If he were to win Arizona, he would have 243 votes. In Georgia, Biden leads by only 8,400 votes, a margin that has been dropping. Like Arizona, Trump may still win the count, and if not, would have a very good chance of prevailing in the recount with Georgia. With Georgia, Trump would have 259 votes. In Wisconsin, their 10 votes are tallied as having been won by Biden by 21,000 votes, but a recanvass is in the offing. Given the facts enumerated in point number 2, there's a very good chance Trump will carry Wisconsin. The recount process in Wisconsin is uniquely fair and transparent, a model for the nation. So Trump may well flip the state. If he does, he will have 269 votes, one short of victory. Then it'll come down to Pennsylvania, and it's 20 votes. The Supreme Court provisionally allowed ballots to be counted if they arrived before Friday, November 6th, and were postmarked before Election Day, November 3rd, and ordered late votes to be segregated. When Justice Alito was informed that the state had not segregated the late votes as required in the court's decision, Alito reaffirmed the necessity of enforcing the court order. Biden currently leads by 37,000 votes in Pennsylvania. The number of late arriving ballots likely far exceeds this total. The state has not published that information. Justice Alito and a court majority may throw out the late ballots, likely delivering the state to Trump. In addition, for the reasons stated above, a recanvass is likely to give Trump a decisive advantage. If he wins Pennsylvania, he will have 289 votes and a sure victory. Will there be a recount in Pennsylvania? The current law requires one if the margin is under 0.5%. And in Pennsylvania, it likely will be slightly greater. There are 2 ways to trigger a recount. First, the Supreme Court could order one after the vote counter so flagrantly violated Alito's order to segregate the votes that he had to reissue it. And remember, 4 justices wanted to reconsider whether to allow late ballots entirely, but the court deadlocked 4-4. Now, with Justice Barrett in the mix, it may take a different view, particularly if the presidency hangs in the balance. Second, Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution states each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors, equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. The Pennsylvania legislature, solidly in Republican hands, both houses, may choose to demand a recount before appointing electors. To build the case for doing so, it may hold hearings into the allegations of fraud, so as to help the voters of the state understand how flagrantly their votes were mishandled. Already the leader of the state Senate in Pennsylvania and the Speaker of the House Assembly have held a press conference announcing their intention to audit the vote counting process. So as Yogi Berra liked to say, it's not over till the fat lady sings. And she hasn't sung yet. Rod Dreher from the American Conservative put it this way: the election was a massive repudiation of wokeness and identity politics. It should give conservative politicians the courage to go on the attack against it within institutions. If Trump holds the executive branch, the Justice Department, the EEOC, the Education Department, and others ought to put the fear of God into the likes of Smith College and woke capitalists. Despite what Stacey Abrams and other leading Democrats want to believe, there can be no illusion that the future of America is identity politics. 2016 shocked our leaders. Whatever the final outcome, this week reminds us that a substantial portion of the American electorate, enough to put a man in the White House, no longer takes guidance from our cultural and political establishment. As a consequence, these Americans are disenfranchised. Not in the electoral sense, Trump may still end up winning, but in the cultural and ideological sense. As the last 4 years have shown, this substantial element of the electorate is deprived of a richly elaborated and coordinated social and political agenda by which to focus their anger and frustration. And this is all likely to remain the case. To remain the case for a long time.